Fasting versus low carb, which one actually works better? Hey Wellness Warrior, I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski, and when we look at fasting and low carb, one of the things that's interesting about it is they're both heavyweights in their own right. They both have profound benefits on the body and especially on your insulin levels. But is it possible that one works better than the other? Well, the good news is there's actually a study that will tell us this. So let's go ahead and dive in. When we look at insulin, it's very important to understand that insulin is the key factor in those who are facing obesity and also type 2 diabetes. Even though we hear on the internet people screaming, especially the fitness gurus out there screaming calories in, calories out, it's all about calories. If you want to lose weight, it's about a calorie deficit. Well, we know that physiologically, it all comes down to insulin. If we could actually lower insulin, then we could actually reverse type 2 diabetes and reverse obesity and help so many people. So let's look at two key factors that you can do in order to lower your insulin. That's going to be fasting and low carb diet, and determine which one actually works better. There was a study in the journal Metabolism, and what they looked at is they looked at blood glucose, insulin, and also glucagon in type 2 diabetics. So we're taking a very unhealthy group of individuals here who have type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and we're seeing which one had a more profound benefit. Was it fasting or was it the low carb diet? Now, the low carb diet that they used was going to be low carb, high fat. They actually referred to it as a carb-free diet. And in that diet, what there was is 3% carbohydrates, 15% protein, and 82% fat. So we're looking at low carb, high fat. This is very similar to a ketogenic diet. When we look at that, and then we compare which one worked better, this carb-free diet or was it fasting, let's look at some of the metrics here. And what they were measuring in this study is insulin response, low carb versus fasting. And they even threw in the standard diet that people are consuming, which is going to be, 50, 60, even higher than that percentage-wise in carbohydrates. Now on this graph, looking at the insulin response, one of the things that we see, where we see these big, massive spikes in here, this is going to be the standard diet, very unhealthy. We all know that. Moving down to this next line on the graph, this is going to be your carb-free diet, which comes in way below the standard diet, but it's still above the fasting. Now, when we look at this line going right across the bottom, we are seeing that is our fasting group. And our fasting group had a much better response to lowering insulin than the carb-free diet. And so when we look at percentage-wise, what happened here, the low-carb, high-fat or carb-free diet group, they were able to lower their insulin levels by 50 to 71% simply by following that diet, meaning they weren't doing any fasting at all. And this is good information because, as I said before, these diets are powerhouses. But with low carb alone, we're able to achieve that. Now, the cool thing about fasting is fasting actually lowered the insulin response and insulin levels in the body by another 30%. Fasting worked the best. Now this makes sense because whether you're eating just a little bit of carbs or even protein, you will have an insulin response. And that's why in the low carb, high fat diet group, they still weren't able to get the results of fasting alone. Now what does this mean for you? What this means for you is that, well, you know what? You could actually get some great results by following a low carb, high fat diet in the way of losing weight or reversing type 2 diabetes, or, if you're obese, losing a excessive amount of weight to get yourself healthy. You can do that very easily with the low carb, high fat diet if you don't want to fast. But if you want the absolute maximum and best results, you're going to want to start fasting. What this also means is that when we look at traditional standard Western medicine today, we can see how flawed it is. And it's flawed simply because we know that we can lower insulin this much by using these dietary and lifestyle methods. Why is it that so many people are taking pharmaceuticals in order to actually accomplish lowering their insulin levels? And we also know that through natural health science, we have different nutrients that are found in nature like berberine, which have a profound impact on lowering insulin levels and blood sugar levels. And so though we may hear people yell from the rooftops, it's all about calories in, calories out, when we break it down all the way to a physiological level, it comes down to insulin if we truly want to see results. So if you're looking to lose weight, lower insulin insulin levels or even reverse type 2 diabetes, following a low carb, high fat diet is profoundly impactful for you to accomplish this goal. And then fasting is going to be the icing on the cake, so to speak. We probably shouldn't talk about cake, but fasting is going to take you that much further. And if you're looking for even further support, use some berberine, and that's going to be helpful as well. I'll put a link in the description to the berberine that we use clinically, especially for type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one over here next.